This is Long Way to the Top, and I'm your host, Shane Bryan. In the words of the immortal AC/DC, it is harder than it looks. These interviews will give you a glimpse into the lives of the artists that we've sung along with, danced and rocked out to. Some go deep into their past and others celebrate their recent releases. But all of them show that regardless of who you are, it's always a long way to the top. Stewart Copeland, thank you so much for joining us on Long Way to the Top. Police Diaries, what an incredible book.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It was fun to make it. I found these diaries that have been sitting in a drawer right over there. They're tiny little books, about that, that big, so that they don't take up much space. But, I got a lot of flack with my first book because it was kind of like about all the weird stuff that happens when you have already been in a huge rock band, just the wild things that happen. But that's not the story that people wanted. They wanted to hear how the Police all started. So this is that book.
You've subtitled it "The Starving Years," I think is what I read.
Well, when we got fed, the story got boring. Well, it got a little repetitive. One stadium looks like another. But the hungry part, the first couple years, was when it was the most interesting part of the story.
And look, it covers for those who don't know the start of the Police. It covers that 1976 through to 1979, during the years when you started out in Curved Air as the drummer.
Yeah, Prague. Well,
rock.
That was the time of the cusp. Where it was all change, from old wave to new wave, from long hair to short hair, from flower power to glue power, from pot to glue, from peace and love to let's burn it all down. All kind of, it was all kind of symbolized by a whole new hairdo. And my two groups of that period, Curved Air and Police, were exactly on both sides of that. Curved Air was an OG prog rock band. We played noodly, 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 a lot of triplets, a lot of fancy stuff. And it was an old-fashioned record company deal where felt like we were the product inside the cans of beans that they were selling, and it was just like it was all industry.
Yes.
And then this punk thing came along, which was DIY. You could do it your darn self. So I immediately wanted a band that could be independent like that. And I want a three-piece band. I need a bass player and a guitarist, one of whom has to sing, because I can't. I'm breathing too hard as I'm banging stuff. And I remembered that one night up in Newcastle on a night off with Curved Air, a local journalist dragged us out to the Polytechnic there, where there was a kind of a jazz band playing. They were actually pretty good. But the first thing I noticed was that bass player.
Yeah,
he's got his own bass, he can sing, and he's got his own amp.
Yeah.
But the main thing that I noticed was this unmistakable celestial glow descending from the heavens and alighting upon his magnificent brow. The man had charisma out to here. Yeah. And he had his own amp. So later, I called that journalist and said, "Hey, can you give me that bass player, his number?" And I started telling him about how this cool scene is happening in London. These new clubs are opening up, new bands, new everything. And it's this thing called punk. And immediately the temperature dropped like 30 degrees. Whoa, no, you don't. I'm not giving you his number, said the journalist, Phil Sutcliffe. We shall name him. And he refused to give me the number because he didn't want me, like ruining Newcastle's finest jazz band by punk. Are you kidding? Because everybody who had a job in the music industry, for them, punk was the barbarians at the gate. All that is sacred shall be pissed upon. And so he wouldn't give me the number. Oh, darn. So I hang up and I'm walking around the circle, an urgent circle in my room. And I think, I've got a winning argument, a more persuasive argument, such as, along the lines of, give me his fucking number. So I called him back and he didn't pick up. His girlfriend did.
Yeah.
And she says, "Oh, Stewart Copeland from Curved Air. Oh, Phil's such a fan of for you. Is there anything I can do for you?" Well, as it happens, do you know the number of that bass player? He said, "Oh, Sting. Oh, sure, I'll go get it." And I can hear clip clop away together, then click clock away. Oh, here it is. 027-531-894.
Is that still
By
his
the way,
number?
that's still his number. Yeah. You can call him on that number and tell him Stewart sent you. So 2 minutes later, I hear that voice on the other end, that voice with which that husky voice
Yes.
with which we are all now so familiar. And the first thing he says is, "Keep talking." And in those two words were a couple of things. First of all, I called him, "Hey, I'm in London. I play in this great big band, Curved Air, and we're got it all going on, and I'm building a group, and we're going to conquer the world. It's all great," and with this convincing certitude. But here's the deal: I'm only interested in you, not your band. I mean, just are you an individual or? And he says, "Keep talking."
Yeah, nice.
And right there, I knew that, okay, he's a free agent.
Yeah.
This could work. But the other thing was that was our relationship for the next 2 years. I had to keep talking.
Yes.
Yeah, we got a rehearsal coming up. Yeah, we got gigs. We got, okay, we're doing a photo session. It's all going to happen. People are really talking about our. I had to keep the hype going.
Talking it up
for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Well, during that period, we didn't have Message in a Bottle or Roxanne. Every Breath You, none of them. We didn't have anything. We had these crap songs that I wrote, which were just basically bass lines with yelling. And the miracle is that Sting didn't run away.
Yeah.
We, after that conversation on the phone, my phone rings and it's him. Hello, it's Sting. It's funny how singers have crap talking
They
voices.
do, don't they? Yeah, they do.
And I'm downstairs. He was in a phone booth on the street outside my flat, which, long story, in the book, we had a 2-story Mayfair apartment. And Mayfair is like the purple, most expensive zones on the British Monopoly board.
Yep.
What we were doing there, long story, but this apartment was like just with carved furniture, heavy drapes, ethnic exotic stuff climbing the walls. It was like, if Vampire Lestat had an apartment in London, this is what it would look like. Gothic hardly does justice. Anyhow, he comes up and he looks around. Wow. And I say, "Here, take this." And I hand him a bass. And he plug it in and we start blazing. And this guy's a complete stranger, but we are from the first instant locked. We rage high into the skies. We dig deep under the mountain. We go out into the broad expanse of humanity. We go inside for that little moment of poignancy. It's all just the chemistry was immediate and powerful.
Yeah.
And so that's where it all began.
And of course,
and I played him.
Yeah, and of course, you the big single that you first came up with was released and then reviewed by none other than Mick Jagger.
Well, he was doing a publicity stint at Melody Maker, where he was reviewing this batch of singles. And by the way, this was not of the caliber of any of the songs that Sting would eventually write. This was one of my crap songs.
I thought it was pretty good.
Well, it was okay. It was utility music to play the punk clubs because that was the only scene happening. We needed punk songs, and with my 3 chords, I concocted a set. And that's the other miracle is that I played him my demos of my stuff, and instead of running for the hills, I kept talking.
Yeah.
And that's what held it together. And so, Mick Jagger. There was a picture of him looking at this thing. I don't know what his opinion of it was.
He said
there he is looking at it.
He called the song "competently played rock with nasal annihilated vocals."
Bastard. I'll have a go at him about that. But so we stuck together through through thin and thinner, Sting and I, as at least we were a hot rhythm section and people would hire us to come and play on sessions. Then we were playing the punk clubs. We did it, on tour with Cherry Vanilla. We actually were in business. We were playing all these different places. The critics apart from Mick Jagger, immediately spotted us as carpetbaggers because we had obviously were serious musicians. We were 5 years older than, you know, Generation X and the Sex Pistols and the Clash and the Damned and all those guys. Were just, they picked up their instruments yesterday, but they had that panache, that naive panache and energy, which gave them all that charisma. But we were professionals.
Yes.
And so we were kind of not getting anywhere. But one day we ran into, you know, we did a session, and the guitarist in that section walks in, Andy Summers. And we had started out with Henry Padovani, who knew the 3 chords that I knew and that I taught him. And that was the band. And he was great on stage. Heavy glass. He was Corsican. He had leather jacket, collar up, all the business, you know. Real great charisma. But he only knew 3 chords. Somehow Sting survived this lack of, you know, this punk thing. But coming home from that session where we had spent a glorious day playing actual music, we'd forgotten what that was like, playing good music. And driving home, he's seething, and he'd thrown in his lot with this crazy American with his wild, grandiose schemes. And we're driving home, and he's just saying, "I can't. We got to get that guy. We got to get that guy. I mean, Henry, he's just not up to scratch. You know, you're a better guitarist than he is." Then he carries on with his tirade. But what did you say? Really? Yeah. And whatever he's screaming about, all I can focus on is, wow, what an unexpected accolade. I'm better than anybody. You know. So.
And I love what you said in the book, you know, and if I can read this little bit out, you said, and then the guitarist walked in. It was the storied alpha session player known as Andy Summers. Once again, an encounter that changed everything goes unmarked on a diary page. In the movie version of this scene, there would be angelic music of revelation.
Absolutely. It changed our life. It changed the whole everything. And, but you know, I'm humoring him. We're not going to get this guy. We can't afford this guy. I mean, there's no way. But we did play a show with Mike Howlett, whose session it was. And by the way, he later released an album called Police Academy, which is those sessions. I mean, he woke up 20 years later and said, "Wait a minute, my solo album, The Police of the band."
The Police, yeah.
And they're playing like they never played on their own records, because it was all chops out to here. It was like musical exploration. It's actually, it really is. It's called Police Academy. Anyway, so he did a gig in Paris. Andy was at the gig. We got to know him a little bit better. We were playing a show at the Marquee Club in London, and Andy jumps on the stage and burns the house down.
Yeah.
And we're considering, oh, God, I mean, you know, and one day, soon after the Marquee thing, I ran into him at a tube station, Oxford Street Tube, and he pulls me over. "Stewart, let's have a coffee. You know, you and that bass player, I really think you've got something, but you need me in the band, and I accept." That's our Andy, direct,
nice.
To the point. And I didn't believe him, and I had to kick the wheels a little bit. So, you know, that's amazing. That's amazing. Sting and I have been talking. I mean, that's I can't believe it. You're saying this. But, you know, we haven't got management. I'm the management.
Yeah.
There's no backing. I'm the manager. That's it. Me on the phone. And we haven't got we got a record company, but that too is me with a letra set doing art myself with glue and bits of paper and so on. But we do have a road crew. That's you.
Yeah.
But he persevered. I mean, he insisted. You know, I guess he'd played with everybody from Neil Sedaka to Soft Machine,
Yes.
and he insisted. So we made it happen. And now,
and Henry was.
What was he thinking? I have no idea what he was thinking.
And Henry Padovani. So he was out.
Well, his first mission was to nuke Henry, which was tough because, you know, he was our best friend. He was the life of the party. You know, Sting was, you know, hadn't really emerged yet. I mean, he was an incredible bass player. We had this thing going on, and he was a great front man, yelling at the audience and abusing the audience, which they loved, by the way. And he had all that going on, but we weren't going anywhere. And so Andy, as soon as he heard Andy's musical vocabulary, that's when Sting started writing songs.
Mm.
And he, as soon after Andy joined, Sting pulls out, Can't Stand Losing You, Roxanne, Born in the 50s. And every song that he pulls out, because Andy can play what he can write.
Yeah.
And we had no idea. Sting had no idea what was under the hood. He didn't know he could write hits. He was a jazz musician. They played long, involved jazz compositions, but he learned how hit songs work, how a pop song works: verse, chorus, something else for the bridge, verse, chorus, out. Very simple. And he learned from playing the cruise ships, about pop music. He didn't like it, but he knew how it worked. And the punk scene taught him to, just distilled all of his musicality into the fewest ingredients. But then you add Andy's vocabulary, and all that he had learned came together.
Yeah.
And to his own surprise, he became one heck of a songwriter.
Yeah, yeah, and of course, Roxanne, the big single that was the first release, I guess, to
second
radio.
release. The
Second
first release was Fallout on my own illegal records label, which it was me on the telephone selling boxes of records. I'd call up a record store in Birmingham, and I got this record. We're called the Police. What are they called? Police? Yeah, that's a bit punkish. Has it got a picture sleeve? Yep, it's got a picture. Is it hostile? Yep, hostile. Short hair? Yep. Send a box. because these record stores, nobody was playing this on the radio, but the record stores soon discovered these wild-looking kids that come in there and say, "Where's the punk?" So they had a rack with punk, and there were very few records, and we were one of the first. And we sold a lot of records. We made profit enough to go and record another single after that, and then an album. Without the record company, it was us. The money came in. I was using my brother Miles's offices, which is the only way we could get paid. And we actually were able to make a living from our own crap record. But then Sting started to write real songs, and we started to make real music, and we ended up with a real record company. Yeah. But that didn't even work either. That sank without a trace too, until Clark Kent showed up.
Yes. Now I do want to get to Clark Kent. One thing, because that's a really interesting period of your life. One thing that I want to mention first is Roxanne. You sent that to the BBC, and the BBC said, "I'm sorry, it's about prostitution. We can't put this into our playlist." Who had the brilliant idea to put "Banned by the BBC Radio"?
That's our brother Miles. Well, all of us. I mean, the brothers Copeland know how to sell shit. And just because we didn't make their playlist, probably for no reason other than they didn't get it, or one reason or another, we didn't make the playlist. And so immediately for us, banned by the BBC. Thus is how dangerous this group is.
And everyone loved it.
Sank without a trace.
Bought the single. Yeah.
It sank without a trace.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Partly because we went to Germany to do, Andy's last gig that he had was as German composer in Germany who was doing a tour. And by the way, he needs a drummer too. So Andy and I went over there and soon convinced him that he also needed a bass player. And he kind of liked the idea because it was this show. He had lasers, he had a ballet, jazz, saxophone, and punk group. That was us. He kind of liked the idea. It made him hip and new. And so over there with Eberhard, after we'd been playing for a while, playing our crap punk music, Eberhard wanted us, go out. And so we just, without any London critics around us, we could play any darn thing and not get busted as actual real musicians. And so in Germany, we're playing there, and there was this jazz singer. And at the first show, we were under rehearsed. We hadn't even rehearsed the whole set. But at one point, the jazz singer does her thing, and we're still trundling along, wondering what we're supposed to do next. Sting walks up to the microphone and starts singing. And Andy and I, we'd never heard him sing before. We'd only heard him yelling. And just his voice soaring high like the eagle soars, and every heart in the theater is broken. Actually, we're playing arenas of big, and just like Andy and I are going, holy crap, what have we got here? And Sting's just, anyone who's seen a Police show back in the day, seeing Sting improvise on stage knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But we didn't know anything about that at the time. And Andy and I come in and we're playing that's where we discovered our sound, really. It was with Eberhard Schoner in Germany. He gave us license to escape the very strict rules of punk.
Yes.
Anyway, our record, meanwhile, disappeared without a trace. But lo and behold, I had a couple songs which are too dumb, even for the Police in those days, which I recorded myself. I played all the instruments, I sang, and the whole thing, one-man band. Then I made this record called Don't Care, which by some miracle, the BBC Radio 1 did add to the playlist, equals hit. So there I am, and I immediately, with A&M, they had signed the Police, it had failed, but I said, look, I'm on the Radio 1 playlist, and they said, okay, and they immediately signed Clark Kent and closed the deal for the Police, lock up the Police for an album, and I had a little minor hit, and my big brag, I'm glad you somehow managed to drag it out of me.
I was getting there.
It was the first time the Three Blonde Heads ever appeared on live national television.
Top of the Pops.
Top of the Pops, yeah.
Yes.
And national TV. You play Top of the Pops, you go up 10 points in the chart, just like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't miss an opportunity to remind my two erstwhile colleagues, the first time I put you on the map, the first time you were, and the best part of all is we were in masks because nobody knew who Clark Kent was. It was a secret identity. And everybody in London, the zeitgeist was asking, who is Clark Kent? Didn't last long. They soon found out it was the dodgy drummer in that dodgy fake punk band, the Police. And, but there we were. And my buddies were there in masks, gorilla masks, and there was old Stingo playing my bass line, miming to my bass line and performance as well. I shall never let him forget it. Of course, he got his revenge, and I ended up, but I still have that little straw upon which I clutch.
And of course, no one could understand what you were singing, though, because the mask was just so, there in your face.
Well, yeah, it was like green paint and cellophane, cling film. But actually the BBC wouldn't let me do that. It's, it will scare the children, and we went through everything to try and do, I couldn't wear a mask because you can't see the mouth moving. That's no good for miming. And so I had some makeup that was supposed to obscure my identity. Luckily, nobody knew who I was anyway. But it wasn't long before the damned NME, New Musical Express, busted me, and that was it for Clark Kent in the nick of time. Because as you will see in my diaries, I had all my notes of all the stuff that was happening, but I had my other notes, my other writings, my just ranting and raving on the page there, grievance nurturing, grandiose schemes, what have you. And I'm there, I'm having my own hit. I don't need those guys. And fortunately, Clark Kent disappeared without a trace before I did anything rash.
Well, I particularly love the line in Don't Care where you sing, if you don't like my arrogance, you can suck my socks. I thought that was poetic brilliance.
I changed that for the BBC performance. It's actually out there. You can find it. I think I've got it on my YouTube site. And you can see Sting's the one, you can tell who Sting is right away. He's the one in the gorilla mask. Andy is wearing a Brezhnev mask. And the two other guys on drums is my old friend Florian Pilkington Mixa, who was my predecessor in Curved Air, and Kim Turner, who became the Police's tour manager.
Yeah, right. And I also believe that there are some demos floating around with Sting actually singing on them.
Oh, yeah. In the book, the deluxe version of the book, I think there's a couple left. There's a disc as well, which has all my demos of the period, because I was recording at home with my Revox A77 and eventually a TIAC. And all those original songs are there. And I didn't include those ones with Sting singing will appear on a Police Deluxe album at some point. I've got him singing my hit, my Don't Care. I've got a recording of him singing it. Wow. Oh, the cruelty.
Well, look, I guess the whole period of this time really showed, and you wrote this in the book where you said Curved Air had been a breeze, but the Police was a hard slog every inch of the way, even when success we were slogging up the mountain. You know, we look at a band like the Police and we go, wow, look at them. So good. They became so big. And we forget that there was a period where you're eating beans out of the can.
Absolutely. And it was during that period that we learned, honed our sound, paid our dues, got it together. And it took all that work. But even when we started to make it, we drove ourselves. We got a hand, you know, our fingernails clawing on the mountainside, climbing up. Whereas in Curved Air, in the old wave, we were signed to a record company who paid all the bills, and we had a crew, and we'd play the gigs, we'd laugh and giggle, and we'd play our set, burn down the house, because it was actually a pretty good live act with a good following. I joined at the very end of Curved Air. You know, I was the last rat to jump aboard the sinking ship. But it actually did pretty well, and it was very comfy. We had a crew around us and everything. I didn't worry about management. I didn't worry about whether the band even was going to make it or not. But with the Police, I cared about every detail. And it was me on the phone hustling. And then when Andy joined, I had to readjust, because Andy also was a very strong hustler. Now we had two of us, and I had somebody to talk to, because, you know, Sting was busy at home, you know, engaged with dense literature and songwriting. And so it was Andy and I on the phone scheming and choosing shots from the contact sheet. And, you know, so when Andy joined, there were now two of us on the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this book takes, you know, you right up to the point where you haven't actually gone to America, or you just go to America, and that's kind of your big break moment. Now, I believe that this is a bit of a bookend, I guess the front bookend to the movie that was released.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as we got to America, the first disposable income I had, I bought a movie camera, and I made the movie Everyone Stares, which, you know, actually had a life of its own. It's out there. And so this is the period before that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
the hungry part. And that was the interesting part, because like I said, it starts to get repetitive after that. You know, one stadium is just like another.
I'd love to fast forward to 1984, after Synchronicity Tour, and the band went on hiatus. Did anyone
Melbourne?
Really know? In Melbourne, yes, in Australia.
Yeah, we finished up in Melbourne.
Yeah. And you all went your separate ways. Did anyone really know at that point? Did you sit down and have a discussion and go, hey, guys, that's it?
Yes, we did.
You did.
We had decided that we were going to take a sabbatical, a hiatus. We just, like, none of us could do anything. I had scored a film for Francis Ford Coppola, and I really liked that work, because the Police, as you might have heard, was hard environment. It was like a Prada suit made out of barbed wire. And we drove each other crazy because of our differences and so on. We now understand that it was that conflict of musical purpose that made the Police what it was. But at the time, it was very difficult. So when I went off to do a film score with Francis Coppola, and I'm all by myself in the studio, no negotiation, no belittlement, no put downs, no, you know, just free to make music. I'd forgotten how much fun it is to make music when it's not a battle. You don't have to struggle for everything. And I wanted to do more of that. Meanwhile, Sting had some success with his acting. And we just, you know, anything that we wanted to do was kind of nipped in the bud, kind of withered on the vine, because everyone wanted to keep the golden goose producing golden eggs, and nobody thought it was a good idea for anybody of us, any of the three of us, to go off and do anything else. And we could feel that cage, the golden cage. And we figured, you know, one night we had decided that we were going to finish off.
Yeah.
And, but, you know, after a show in Chicago, and there's talking about, okay, after Australia, then we'll do another South American leg, then we'll go back and then maybe do the next album and whatever. And, you know, we're going, okay. But we're in the car on the way back to the hotel, and Sting and I are talking, and we realize, wait a minute, we got to be together on this, and we've got to be, you know, we got to speak with one voice. So we get back to the hotel, call Andy, and he's in agreement. And we just said, that's it. No more after Australia. That's it. We will have to have, what else there after Australia? I mean,
That's
come
it.
on.
That's it. That's the pinnacle of your career. Exactly.
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
that was a good thing about the band, is that we did go out on a high. We never saw the other side of the parabola, you know, where it starts to go down. We never experienced that. It was still going up like a rocket ship when we walked away.
I remember in 1986, you performed at the Amnesty concerts, and you brought Bono on stage for the final verse of Invisible Sun. And at the end, you handed U2 the instruments, and Bono himself actually said it was like passing the torch.
Yeah.
What a great note to go out on.
Well, I mean, our joke was that with Andy was when Andy hands his guitar over to Edge, you know, make sure it's out of tune. We were kidding. It was a joke. It was a joke. Andy wouldn't have. None of us would have done that because we had a lot of respect for you too. And it would be an honor. It was. I felt honored that Bono, who was already something, would
getting there,
see it that way.
Yeah, very much so. There's been a lot of, I guess, well-documented tension between, I guess, everyone in the band, you know, and we look at this and go, oh, the band's fighting. But was it just a case of that you were all just too close to one another?
Well, every band is close, and I thought all bands were conflict like that. But I've come across other groups where they get along great. Rush get along great. Fish get along great. The Foo Fighters are the most easy, fun hang in show business. The Police was not an easy, fun hang. It was torturous.
The Beatles weren't easy either. Come on.
Well, we could see that they had some tension too. Yeah. But we realized the purpose of it, and it really was down to the fact that we figured this out later. But music has a different function in our lives.
Yeah.
And we make it for different reasons. And we make it in by different means. Yes. And for Sting, it's a beautiful thing that he can make that takes him into a place of serenity, beauty, calm, escape from the hurly-burly world. It's a beautiful place that he goes when he writes songs. And it's just a wonderful thing. And to bring it to the band, and he has a great idea, and then he has to negotiate and deal with and compromise, and you know, that's what was once collaboration is now compromise. And by now he knows how to write and how to record a hit, and he gets it perfect in his mind. And when he goes to the band, it's going to be in his mind diminished in some way, diluted by these two. And for us, of course, it's going to be diluted. That's what we're in a band for, is to take your shit and make something even better out of it. That's, you know, when we started off and he'd bring a song and cool. And he'd just be happy that we liked the song, and sure, faster, no problem. But by then he really knew what he was doing, and it was hard for him. And I forget where I was going with that. Where are we going with that?
I guess it's the refining process of a that's what the band is really there for. And sometimes
it was all about the music.
And you get burned.
Over dinner, we would get along great. And that's always been the case. Even in the reunion tour, we drove each other mad. Yeah. And it was during the reunion tour that we figured out what the deal is, what the formula, what it's all about. In fact, we had band therapy, and it worked. And we still had the problem. I mean, he still has to sing his beautiful songs with World War III going on over his left shoulder. And I'm having my fun playing the song, burning down the building, but I've got to, every now and then, can I ease it off a little bit and let the guy sing his song for a minute? Yeah. But there was that tension all there. But as soon as we're off stage, we're back in the pocket. And to this day, we are very tight.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the book is out, or you can order it, pre-order it now. There's several different copies. There's, I think 500 copies of the signature edition and 100 copies of the ultimate edition. I think there's still some left.
None of the ultimate. The ultimates have gone.
The ultimate? All gone.
Uh,
All gone.
the middle one where you get the book and you get a poster or something. I'm not quite sure what you get and you don't get, but
CD of unreleased recordings. Yeah.
You get the CD of unreleased recordings. Yeah.
That's what you want. That's what you want. And it's called the Police Diaries. I'll put the link to where you can get it on the description for the podcast. I just also want to make a quick brief mention of the symphony versions that you have put together.
Oh yes, I want to bring that to Australia.
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah.
It's Police Deranged for Orchestra, where I took those derangements, which was the score of the film that I made, where I cut up all the songs and did these wrong versions of them. And I've been playing with, my film composing is where I had an involuntary education in orchestra. And I've been doing these shows commissioned by various entities, the Liverpool Symphony, the Dallas Symphony, whatever. And somebody said, well, why don't you throw in some Police songs there, throw in some hits? And of course I said, no, no, no. And then, okay, well, yes. And I used those deranged versions that I did for the film, orchestrated those, and I got 3 soul singers on the mic. And that was just a clinical decision. But wow, when I heard them, it blew my mind. And it's like the Police sung by the Supremes with a gigantic orchestra and me banging shit.
Then there's
another version. The story doesn't end there.
Oh, folks. Okay.
And and that's not all.
I really loved Every Breath You Take with
Zulu.
Incredible. Just amazing versions that you've put together on that album.
Yeah, well, there's 2 versions of the album. There's the first one, which is the original deranged concept. But then my buddy Ricky Cage, with whom I've won a Grammy for both of the last 2 years, he says, give me that record. You send me over those stems. Then next thing I know, he's got the Soweto Gospel Choir, the Mzansi Youth Choir, Sui Jian, a huge Chinese artist, and various others, and he's created a global version of it. And like I was saying, Every Breath You Take in Zulu is kind of cool. And in Hindi, we have Urdu, Tamil, Hindi, Armenian. That's really alternative.
Yeah. Well, you finish your book with this line, and you say, "We were still on a mission to make the coolest music and be the coolest band." And I have to say, from a Police fan, there isn't very many bands out there that have stood the test of time and are still to this day on playlists on classic rock and on adult hits. I mean, sensational music.
You've dragged it out of me. Once again, you've forced a brag out of me.
Okay.
You demanded the brag that on Spotify, we are now ahead of not only U2, but Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd. Wait a minute. That's just not right. Pink Floyd? Ever heard of Dark Side of the Moon?
Wow.
Well, we're getting more, more streams, more listens than Led Zeppelin. Come on, folks. Have you no taste, no class? Get out your Led Zeppelin.
I love it. I love it. Look, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you. And look, I hope the book goes well. In my opinion, everybody should have this on their coffee table and be using this as a reference for how to make it in the music industry.
Well, there is that. There is some use to the book.
And just the final thing, what are you listening to right now?
I'm listening to Sleaford Mods. I'm listening to Idol. Right. I'm listening to, for some reason, angry music makes me happy.
We've come all circled all the way back to that punk again. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, why is that Slipknot just improves my day?
Why doesn't it? Seriously, everybody needs a bit of Slipknot.
Absolutely. Although I did catch it just by accident. I saw Jacob Collier playing a show in Italy, and wow, that little sucker, 28 years old, should have been throttled at birth, that kid. What do they feed kids these days? He's on a piano, on a guitar, stage. I'm stealing chops off this kid. I'm 70, he's 28. What's that? He's
Prodigy.
less than half my age or something. And dang, that kid's good. You see, when I was driving my kids to school, they would keep me hip, but they've all grown up and out now. And the last I heard was Kendrick Lamar. And I haven't heard about anything since then, except for I have to run into Sleaford Mod. They're so tough. That is the weirdest band in the world. I don't know if they're big in Australia. Check them out.
I will check them out, definitely. Well, thank you so much, Stewart Copeland. Thanks for joining me on the show today.
Well, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Long Way to the Top. Hit plus or follow to subscribe to the podcast, and head over to Facebook at the Long Way to the Top podcast and give us a like. Keep on rocking, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Long Way to the Top.